I've learned how to use social media and people. People means money. There's no shortage of money. There's a shortage of people contacting other people. And so I'm 15 years old. I told my mom one day, I said, I'm going to get rich. I'm going to get so rich. I will never worry about money again.
Owning a home is a horrible investment. You got to buy a house because that's what her mom and her mom and her mom and her mom said. That's success. And by the way, that's an investment, which by the way, I don't know when that happened, when it became an investment. The house could triple. You never hear the wife going, let's sell it and make our 300%. That never happened. It's not an investment.
What a treat to have both the Cardones with us, Gary and Grant.
Well, Grant and Gary.
I think I was looking at my mind meant the other way, but Bonnie Chang's my co-host, and we're just super excited to have you both. You got fans all over the world.
David.
Oh yeah,
that's right. We're gonna get to your Bitcoin outlook. We're gonna talk about business. We're gonna talk about life. A lot of things. Bonnie, why don't you start?
How would you describe each other?
Oh, dude, that's a great question, Bonnie.
That is a good question.
My brother's extremely intelligent, very nimble, very difficult to pin down. Like you can try to pin him down, he's coming back. Very extremely resilient, a lot of courage, and extremely great at relationships. Very long-term relationship builder, and extremely caring, sharing, and loves people. That's how I would describe him.
Wow,
that's a lot. I'm not sure I have that much for you. One, you're brilliant. Okay, that just articulated the brilliance. Look, he's a force of nature, right? Once he decides to do something, it's you would not want to bet against him. So, powerhouse. That's the way I put it.
You both grew up middle-class kids from Louisiana.
Yeah.
You both took
did it feel like middle class?
I didn't know what it felt like, really.
What is middle class?
We were told over and over it was the middle class.
But you had very different life paths, but you both ended up super successful twins. Statistically improbable, but it happened.
Yeah.
Walk us through how that happened.
That's a good question, man. You guys ask good questions. So I don't know how it happened. We were both bad students. We were, right?
I don't know that I was a bad student. I think I was a very bored.
Yeah.
I was bored and the teachers were boring and the subject was boring.
Yeah.
The whole construct was boring, actually. I felt like I was in prison.
I just remember my dad died when we were 10 and the money stopped, right? Like we didn't know money stopped. At 10 years old, you don't know anything happened. You're not looking at the checking accounts. But you could feel when my mom should have been experiencing grief, she was in fear. I think the house was sold the next week. The house my dad had spent his whole life preparing to buy. He was debt-free, had some life insurance. I think they had some stocks, like some AT&T dividend stocks that paid every quarter. All this would have a lot to do with who I would become later because I'm like, okay, the quarterly dividend doesn't work because my mom was in fear every 2 and 3 months. And the house didn't work because she had to sell it. Whatever cash they had, she was just basically having to manage it. You're not creating when you're managing. So I was learning all these lessons at 10 and 12 and 13 and 14 years old. I didn't even know I was learning these lessons. So saving money didn't work. She's the one that pushed the college thing. You guys should go to college. College was a complete waste of time for both of us. I'm speaking for him, but it was definitely a waste of time for me. Every bad habit I have was learned in high school and college. And so, that's when I look back today, I'm like, many of the things that happened to me in those very critical years is why I invest the way I do today.
Gary?
It's interesting to hear Grant's, because I don't have that. That's not my memory. I do remember my mom being really terrified, but I think there's something, I suspect there's something, one, losing the dad, but also he and I's, like we have this thing that like if he starts cutting up here, I will most certainly start cutting up. And then he will want to cut up to another, like we'll just spin each other up. And this is why we live in different cities, states, and sometimes countries. But like I just needed to get out of the house, man. I was lost at 20 years old. I had no idea.
Did you feel like you were your biggest competitors?
No. No, we weren't. It was very clear to me we were going in totally different directions. So as soon as I got out of college with economics and marketing background, I left. I mean, I went to Houston and I didn't come back.
Yeah.
And I went corporate. Now, the story I would share for the audience is he went highly independent. I'm never going to work for anyone. And I went, hey, I'm not smart enough to be my own guy in the business. I was going into oil and gas. I can't do that by myself. So I spent 17 years working for a company and did pretty well. So, for me, the message is, oh, wow, guy goes all by himself, does really well. Guy goes into corporate, does really well. What's the similarities? Extreme focus. Once we found our little window, the focus was pretty unparalleled.
And speaking of the window, I think the middle class really, like if you grow up, like we were really poor. We weren't, I mean, not really poor, but we weren't middle, whatever that means. Like, it's your question. What is it? Like, it's just a
mindset.
It's a
more
place to call not poor, because basically you're one emergency, one credit card, one mistake, just one investment from being a poor person. One job out of being poor. My dad died. It wasn't his fault. His heart explodes. And the next thing you know, my mom's having to sell the house. So that house is not an asset at that moment. It's a liability. And the ability, no money coming in was like, oh shit, no money comes in. You got to change everything. She did not know how to get money. And I'm watching this. I look back now and I'm like, oh, my dad was a great people person. My mom wasn't. She was not good at going out and meet people. My dad could meet anybody, and that's why he got money. So I'm like, oh, that's the trick. The hack is people. My brother's great at people. I've learned how to use social media and people. People means money. There's no shortage of money. There's a shortage of people contacting other people. So, and my dad knew how to play that game, but nobody was there to teach us. So here I am, 15, man. I'm like, got 3 uncles. He can't teach me anything. We don't, it's the blind leading the blind, right?
So you had to go to the hospital.
Yeah. But so, I'm like, okay, I got 1 of 3 uncles. I know one of these guys is going to show up. I wasn't expecting my mom to teach us. I'm like, there's got to be a man that's going to step in and help us. And they did, and they had their families. And so I'm 15 years old. I'm like, I told my mom one day, I said, I'm going to get rich. I'm going to get so rich. I will never worry about money again.
How old were you when
I'm 15 years old. I remember it like it was yesterday. I said, because she's clipping coupons. My mom knew where to save everything. She knew where to get gas, where not to, where to go get blueberries, what day. Like, this was all calculation. She was a genius at it. And this prevented me from having extreme wealth most of my life. He was around the corporations, so he saw these guys making hundreds of billions of dollars investments. I'm selling cars at 28 years old. I'm hustling $200 commissions. So complete different upbringings, right? And the way we do money now is completely
different. Well, not different upbringings, but
different experiences approach with the professional life.
Yeah.
Upbringing, right? Coming out of being a kid. And so I'm hustling $200 commissions, working, 14-hour days. He's around companies that are talking about oil and gas investments that are hundreds of millions of dollars. And he's seeing the world. And I didn't do that. So our view of the world and money is very different because of those experiences.
Growing up like that, would you say you were insecure when it comes to money?
Oh, 1,000%.
And that didn't help you, or did it?
Did it help me?
Yeah.
No. I was like very insecure about money.
Yeah.
Like, how do I get it? How do I keep it? What do I do with it? I remember I was 31 years old and realized I had $1 million sitting in savings accounts. I didn't even know I had $1 million. When I saw that I had $1 million, I became terrified. I'm like, oh my God, now I really don't know anything. So I would say I was extremely insecure about money.
Do you think you still are?
To some degree, yeah. To some degree, I still am influenced by I lack the capacity to take great risk. So I played everything very conservative. When Saylor saw my fund, the second time we spent with Mike Saylor, I showed him what we were going to do with our real estate crypto or real estate Bitcoin hybrid. And he's like, that's a pussy fund. I don't know how you say that in Taiwanese, but.
We're going to get to that fund in just a minute, but I want to talk about business and working for yourself. I'll start with you, Gary, first. Same question for both of you. At what point in your life did you have this click aha moment where you went, I'm not going to work for anybody else anymore?
I've never had that.
Me either.
I've never had the idea that I would not. I'd go work for you tomorrow morning,
100%.
Bonnie.
Really?
I've had
I would
so
be
many
terrified.
people. I've had so many people say this. Oh, you will never work for anyone. I'm like, I gladly work for anyone. If they're nice people and they have a big idea and I bring value all day long. You know, I don't have. I have a lineage of ideas, but I have a shortage of teams and armies that I can go work with that actually can get something done. And whether that's one person or five, it's very, very hard. So I don't think I've ever had that. I did have the moment I no longer had a boss, or my bosses were separated by 6,000 miles, and no one stepped over me, and they allowed me to stand up to the level of responsibility that the market offered me. I was like, wow, I can grow, man. If someone's not holding me down, and I needed a lot of help, but I had really, really good instincts, and I just needed to be given responsibility. And don't save me. Please don't save me. Like, let me, work through my issues. I don't, like, I would not want to work alone. And most people look at me and go, well, I don't have any employees, but I do work alone, but I really work with a lot of people. There's too much information in the world today not to plug in. I mean, I plugged into you 3 or 4 years ago because I knew, look, he knows something about this part of the world, and I saw what was happening with data. And why wouldn't I want to, hook up with there are channels, man. There's packages of data. He has connections. He has connections. I think the great mistake he and I make is we and many people in the industries, we don't use our connections well. Like, he meets people that are energy people. He should immediately go, hey, Gary, like this cat, I know so much about energy. And it's not so much about doing a strategic reserve with an energy player. It's like, oh, wow, how much energy is this guy? You'll understand this, David. How much storage are energy players using every year that they literally would not need to use if they were mining Bitcoin? Storage for natural gas costs $3 a year. The price of natural gas is $3. So it's 100% to store energy, and energy moves like this, right? People are literally, Howard Hamm is literally going to look at it and go, I'm not going to spend $1 on a unit of natural gas that trades for $3 when I can mine Bitcoin for a small capital cost, and then take that Bitcoin, put it on my balance sheet, just like the oil and the gas sit on my balance sheet. It's a commodity, and they under the FASB rules, and they will suck that up all day long. And who's going to lose? The storage providers will lose. Guess what? They're intermediaries. And Bitcoin, this whole crypto, it's about shrinking the intermediaries involved in a really complex analog value chain that's been created over 150, 200 years. And we never had these digital tools. On my telephone, I can literally tell you exactly how small or large that dimension is. That was not available 3, 4 years ago. So it's really a staggering amount of technology change. And we just, there's so much going on that I don't think you can do this alone. I think it's a club or a team effort. Actually, I don't think there's much competition in this industry. People should not look at a zero-sum game here. They should look at, I own a tax.
You're talking about working together.
Right? I own a company that does really high-end audits for crypto, HF, high-frequency traders. And there was 2 or 3 competitors out there, like TaxBit and some other guys. And we were all chatting. I said, hey, why don't we all meet? Oh, you would meet with us? I said, dude, you're not my competitor. There's 8 billion people on this planet. We can't serve all these people. There's the IRS, there's the SEC, there's the DEA. Every one of these people are moving into crypto. They're having to look at the world as we digitize it, and there are no tools. Okay, there are no tools. There are pencils, and there's pieces of paper, just like there was a cave wall, and there was some blood, and they did a paint thing, or there was a stone wheel. You're not going to throw the stone wheel down the 405 at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's going to cause, it is a wheel, but it ain't going to work well. And I think that's a really good analogy where we're headed. The tools we have are very heavy to move into a world that's light, right? It's just data.
Before we continue with the video, let me tell you about a very important topic, Bitcoin. It's had a 10-year compounding annual growth rate of over 80%, and it's been one of the best performing assets in the world. That means there's a high opportunity cost to spending your Bitcoin savings. Now, with today's sponsor, People's Reserve, and their revolutionary Bitcoin-powered financial products, you can now borrow against your Bitcoin with no credit checks, no income verification, no taxable event, and no rehypothecation risk. Their flagship product, the Bitcoin-powered mortgage, is redefining home ownership for Bitcoiners. And here's the best part. Liquidation risk isn't tied to price volatility, only to non-payment defaults. This protects borrowers and lenders from the biggest risks in traditional crypto lending. With the advent of People's Reserve's revolutionary lending products, you can now unlock the purchasing power of your Bitcoin savings without having to give up ownership. Go to peoplesreserve.com, link down below, or scan the QR code here. Sign up for their newsletter and discover how to build wealth smarter. That's peoplesreserve.com.
I'm going to throw a curveball at you guys. I'll start with you, Grant.
Yeah.
What would crash the markets 50, 80% the next year? If you had to pinpoint one or two global events, and how would you hedge against that as an investor? Basically, the biggest risks facing investors were just world peace overall.
What would crash the markets? I mean, look, the only thing, I don't know that I have an answer to that, but the only thing standing between Donald Trump having the best economy in the history of the United States is a 10-year treasury. If that comes down,
And it won't. It will not come down.
okay.
He hates this part because he's a real estate guy. But look, Grant, the truth is 4.5% to 5%. You would buy 5% money for 20 years if you could right now. You'd rip their faces off.
Yeah.
And everybody else would. That's why the 10 years at that number.
Yeah.
Because the demand's there. You and I grew up in an 8.5% marketplace. What's wrong with 5?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The cost of assets are so much more expensive today.
No, the cost of assets.
The payment on a single family home is not affordable to 80% of the people that are trying to qualify for one.
The only problem is the 2021 vintage of investments made at arms.
No, that's not the biggest problem.
That have blown out, and the people are upside down.
The biggest problem,
they don't want to take the loss.
Sorry, the biggest problem is the single family homes. Okay, that 70% of those are sitting on somewhere between sub 4. I think 30% of them are paid for in cash. Those people can't trade. The housing market and the mortgage market.
So they're locked.
The Fannie Freddie.
You're saying they're locked in. They can't actually move because the rate is.
They can't move. They can't move.
See, this is a Bitcoin problem. It's a fiat problem.
Yeah, but you're not finishing the first problem.
Hang tight though, because I think it's really important. Like the fiat problem is a guy has a 4% interest rate. Rates are 8 or 7. But the rates aren't. The next mortgage is. Yeah. Well, excuse me.
Okay.
The next mortgage.
His money's earning 0.5%. So his maybe 1/4%. So he's paying 4 when his money earns nothing.
Yeah.
And for David to go buy a new house in Toronto, I mean, you can't even get a fixed loan there. That's why the single family will crash in Canada, and it won't crash here because. And we're not answering your question really, but the single family can't crash here because you have 70% of these loans sitting at sub 4. So there's no crash in single family. Now he's talking about the 3.7 trillion sitting in commercial money that's adjustable and it's maturing right now. But those guys just keep kicking the can. It's so big. The problem's so big, they're just going to keep kicking it. What would crash you're talking about the Bitcoin market or the stock market?
You're going to come to an answer? We're going to kick it around.
No, I'm trying to come to an answer.
You can kick it and then come to an answer. We got all day.
Yeah.
Bitcoin and stock markets, they're correlated. But yeah, public markets.
It doesn't seem like anything can kill either one of them.
Yeah.
Which is mind-boggling to me. I would have thought the stock market would be off many times more than it is today. I don't understand it.
Right.
I mean, the reality is there's 493 of the S&P 500 stocks. Haven't made anybody any money in a long time. That's not advertised by your people. You guys don't put that message out on a daily basis. It should. And then what brings Bitcoin down? I don't think anything brings it down. I think it gets crushed one day and then tomorrow it's going to ride high.
I love this.
Yeah.
I watch a lot of your interviews, and there are some very interesting statements about money that Grant made, and I want to know what Gary thinks. People should not save.
True. People should invest, not save. Saving. Like, he made a good point one day. People that, like, I know somebody that's got $300,000 in cash waiting for an emergency.
Yeah.
And she has more insurance than this entire convention center. Like, she's got insurance. It's our sister. She's got more damn insurance, health, life, whatever. And she's got 300 grand for an emergency. And that's a lot of money for an emergency.
And she doesn't spend more than $100 bucks a month. So she's got enough money for like 35 years.
Totally. She's never needed more than 3.
Yeah.
And then the inverse is the person that's, okay, I have $7,000 that I'm saving for an emergency. I cannot possibly, I'm going to save it under my pillow. Well, that money's not doing anything. By the way, every emergency is going to be over $7 grand.
And they all take you back to zero. So that's
you're better off being zero and calling your mom up and going,
no, you're better off going to zero on your own,
yes,
not having an emergency take you to zero. So let's say if your cost of living was $3 grand a month, and Dave Ramsey would be like, you need $9,000. I'm like, Dave, this is kind of stupid, bro. You're just going back and forth. You're a yo-yo. You're literally funding an emergency. You're manifesting an emergency with your money.
Now, if I may.
You earn nothing. Hang on a second. You earn nothing on it. And then you're pulling the emergency in. Now, if you can't pull your own emergency in, guess what? Your father-in-law is going to pull an emergency in, which is even worse. He's going to have a damn emergency, and it's going to cost exactly $9,000. And they're going to come to you because you have $9,000 in an emergency account, and you're so guilty. You're like,
no to your
I
family.
funded for the emergency, so I should save them. If you didn't have the zero, what I would say is just take your emergency account, keep it at zero all the time. Take that emergency money and make sure you invest in something where you know you can't lose. And when the emergency comes, do not fund it out of the thing you invested in. Fund it with people. Go hustle other people. David, I need $9 grand for my fucking emergency. Can you help me? Remember that interview I did for you with my brother, that bullshit interview? Okay, give me $9 grand, bro. I'll give it back to you one day.
Did you?
The next one is you don't want to be liquid.
I don't want liquidity because I do dumb stuff. But all these you got to admit there's 50% of these people in this conference are degenerates. Like you give them liquidity, they'll buy today, sell tomorrow, buy today. They're going to buy at the wrong time, sell at the wrong time. That's why these casinos do so well, okay? When you come into this casino, they take your cash, convert it to a chip with their name on it. It's no longer your chip. And the guy spends 2 hours losing his money when the truth is he lost it when he walked in. He lost it when he said, here's $100, give me a chip. That's when he lost his money. Liquidity is a problem for most people.
But if we're not liquid, how do I buy the dip?
Yeah, I have a very different answer. I don't think liquidity is a bad thing. I want to be liquid. I actually want to plan for my liquidity. I want to. Most people don't just have stacks of cash sitting on their bed. Hey, I'm looking to deploy it. I like planning for liquidity now that I understand Bitcoin. And I think I do really understand Bitcoin. It allows me to really fund this investment now. What people are so scared of, they talk about all that volatility. I look at it and go, oh my God, it allows you to plan for your seeding, for your investment into this. And you most certainly hope this thing continues through actually a transparent cycle of what the asset's worth that other assets don't actually have. And I think real estate is an extremely opaque. And I don't care if it's commercial, residential, multi-dwelling. Once a sector collapses, it will suck in the rest of the sector. There's no,
I agree with that.
Oh gosh, I'm protected because I own a $14 million home. You're going down too. Like, so, well, back to David's question, nuclear war most certainly would destroy the economy.
Sure, for sure.
Okay?
I mean, it destroyed a lot of things.
But I don't see that the economy is destructible. I don't think we're going to have a recession. I don't think you're going to have a depression. These are made up numbers. Most of the metrics are.
Matthew, just on that note, you were on my show about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
You changed your mind over the last year and a half. You were kind of leaning more towards recession then. What changed your mind over the last year?
Well, I don't think a recession's. We should have had 14 recessions.
We have had.
Dude,
we were rolling.
No
half of
one's
Biden's
admitting
administration was in a
No
recession.
one's admitting it. They don't.
Yeah,
want
that's right.
to use
That's right.
the word,
They redefined.
So they have redefined GDP, CPI, PPI.
Yeah.
Inflation now has another definition. The VIX, dude. You've been watching the VIX forever. Okay. He and I have been watching the VIX. when crude oil goes down $20 and the VIX doesn't move, or you say, oh gosh, we just declared war against Ukraine.
Nothing moves, man.
And the VIX
Market goes up.
down and the S&P goes up. You're like, hey, this is rigged. None of these numbers make sense. And that is why you get to Bitcoin so quick. It's like, oh, wow, I am most certainly in a Ponzi scheme. To his comment about, hey, half the people here are degens, half the people here are some of the smartest people
That's the other half.
ever met in my life.
There's no in between, I guess.
Some of them are what you call the degens.
Yeah.
Because they're learning through exploratory, they're discovering stuff. They're not all now. The other part of this is,
bro, there's a lot of shit coin talk out there.
If you actually go and meet some of these people, go deep, the learning from the original, say, 12 years of people in crypto, the study that is achievable by just listening to the mistakes these people made. This is the book I would love to write or interview everybody that lost $1 billion from crypto. The opportunity. I mean, Chamath should be sitting next to the president of the United States right now. He owned 5% of all the supply of Bitcoin and sold it. And then went and did a bunch of SPACs. He would literally be sitting with Sachs right now in the office. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a colossal mistake. Wow, I own 5% of all the Bitcoin and I sold it. And now you see what we see today. This thing is moving. I mean, something is happening.
Can we go back to the liquidity question? Because I think it's really important because, I used to think I'm going to store liquidity because I'm going to buy the bottom. I'm going to buy this place. The truth is all I did was end up watching money get depleted. And so I think since 2020, money's lost 25% of its value. That was that mentality of, I got to be liquid. So right now, what I do is every quarter I try to dump out to zero. I try to find some place to go in because I've never been able to time anything. This was what gets me into this degenerate stuff too, by the way. Oh, and most of these people are buying at the top. They're not buying at the bottom. They're buying when the rush goes and all the news goes positive and you look around, you can't see anything but, bright lights and all that glimmers is not gold, and that's when a lot of people are buying. And that's why Saylor and some of the great investors talk about the dollar cost averaging. I'm going to buy it on the 15th, regardless of the price, put it away and move on.
Is that what you're doing?
That's what I'm doing.
And is that what you're doing?
And then I'm buying real estate constantly.
Because I thought you didn't like some of the prices. I think the sailors of the world, the people that really
I didn't buy any today. If you mean that it's today the 15th.
Well, but I mean, are you buying 111 or are you?
I bought 108. Yeah. I bought 106. I bought 105.
But strategies.
But I've also bought 75.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you're both investors in Bitcoin now, but you've got real estate portfolios. You're adding $100 million to your $1 billion real estate fund. Who talked who into buying Bitcoin? Who's first?
Well, I was born first. We've had many discussions on the Bitcoin thing. I'm trying to understand it. He's obviously spent a lot more time learning about it. I think we were in a room one day and somebody said in the room, we were at Spaces, and the guy's like, Grant, you should get rid of your $5 billion worth of real estate and have it all in Bitcoin. And Gary popped up and says, dude, you sound like an idiot. Like, what are you talking about? You're going to dump your entire business that you've built for 30 years to be in this other asset class. And then I was in other rooms where they're like, hey, what's better, Bitcoin or stocks? These debate rooms. And then he and I met Saylor, back in January, February this year. And just looked at how could I mix the two together? I was given some in 2013, bought some more in 16, bought some more in 20, but not big positions. Now I figured out how I could do this on a regular basis where my real estate's buying my Bitcoin.
He was given 100 Bitcoin to speak for 1 hour.
Yeah.
10 mil.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Let's. I think I have.
Maybe 100 mil one day.
If you can shorten your answers,
you didn't buy pizza with that, did you?
These people with their time, but look, I think he said because it is a question. A lot of people go, "Hey, who's first in the crypto? Who's first in real estate?" He's been in real estate. I mean, he's been in love with real estate since he was a teenager. he made a comment earlier that how conservative he is, and he is. I'm really the opposite.
Yeah.
Okay, like I'm 5 years, and it's not like I'll carry a lot of losses too. I mean, he's just never gonna. He will always look at me the first 2 or 3 years of what I'm doing, going, "Bro, you're crazy." I mean, I just like you're out of your mind. Like,
I'll bet $25 on a blackjack table tonight. That will not be his minimum bet.
Oh, no chance. Like it just doesn't interest me. But I lived in a world where the numbers were larger, and
Yeah,
it was just
that's right. That's right.
It doesn't like I'm not going to do anyway. But I think that explains the difference. It's just it's a mindset. It's not really. It's just a mindset of what you're willing to look at and study and learn. I think it would be really cool for people if they're looking for an opportunity. I met somebody out there. Hey, I'm lost. I don't know what to do. I'm like, well, you're in the right industry because nobody knows what we're doing. So like nobody has an edge as long as you're willing to come here. Like there are real serious jobs to get here. Now, this isn't just about Bitcoin. Like if you don't have $1, you don't have to buy Bitcoin, but come into this industry. It literally has open doors to everyone. There's no closed doors. That is a phenomenal industry to be able to, no resume, no college education is required. Buy 1/10 of a Bitcoin and join the club, and there's just so many things to do, so many companies to join.
Grant, you went on Undercover Billionaire.
Yeah.
And you successfully turned $100 to a company that's worth $5.5 million in 90 days.
During COVID. Without
Okay.
using my name, no social media,
Yeah.
no ads.
Okay, so for people that haven't seen that episode, how did you do it?
Yeah.
And if you were to do it today,
Yeah.
if you would do it differently?
No, I wouldn't do it differently, but
I probably wouldn't do it at all.
I wouldn't do it at all. 100%. It was the dumbest, most ridiculous, most painful thing I've ever done in my entire life. Look, the first thing I did, this goes back to what I was saying to you earlier about money. You people do not need cash. You know, I know he and I agree on this. Like if I was starting all over again, I would be hustling people for fiat.
How do you do that?
Exchange some value with you, okay? The value could be, hey, Bonnie, do you have $100 on you?
He used the
Yes.
word
Do you?
hustle. He
Do you
doesn't
have 100
really
on you
mean
right now?
the word hustle.
Could you lend me $100?
Sure.
Would you lend me 100?
Yes.
I don't know when I can give it back to you, okay?
What's the interest rate you're charging him?
Exactly. I think it'd be nothing. And I could run that hustle, okay? Now, obviously, I need to exchange value with you, or otherwise I'm not going to be able to repeat that with you because then that's just a bad hustle. But then I'm going to take that $100. What I did on Undercover Billionaire that caused Discovery Channel and me to be angry at each other all the time is they wanted me to spend the money.
Mm.
And I said, no, I'm dropping the money off at the bank. And they said, well, we need to see it go from 100 to 82 to 64 to, that's a TV show. I said, this isn't a produced TV show. You guys are going to follow me. I'm going to turn $100 into $10 million in 90 days. For me to do that, I need to drop off this 100 at the bank and go to zero right now. I'm not going to have money. I never bought anything the entire 90 days. I never spent a penny. Everybody else funded every activity I did. And so we built a marketing company in Pueblo, Colorado, and it worked good. I'd probably do it again. Like if I wanted to make a bunch of money, everybody's got marketing problems. Bitcoin does not solve every problem in the universe. I know the Bitcoiners out there, they're all like, it's going to solve the water problems and the wars. There's not going to be more wars. Nobody will be hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not true. Okay, you got human beings causing those problems. Now, money does not cause those problems. It funds a lot of the dumbness. But so I would do that again. I had no money every night. I got somebody to provide me with a place to sleep.
So
food.
if we just think about what you just said, because this is where we disagree, right? I think money is actually the way money has been populated across the planet is one of the core issues. And this is what turns people into animals and constantly having to run harder, cut corners because the gravity of the universe around them, whether it's the cost of eggs, the cost of milk, the cost of gasoline, the cost of housing, which by the way, I think housing is the only thing that's inflated. Everything else has been supply shock inflation, where prices go.
Yeah,
that is not real inflation. Okay, that is blow up a pipeline and the energy prices to Germany go up triple. Well, that's intervention. Okay, we intervene all the time. I think we would have far less wars if you studied Bitcoin more and you studied how money is being adulterated. I think that's the right word, or bastardized. It is creating real behavioral issues. Like people are cheating and stealing and doing things that they only do under duress. And I think most people are good people, but when they get scared and they see no possible way to win, they do things that are bad. And I think money is really, we've added 40% of all the paper in the United States was added in the last 5 years. It's a lot of money.
Gary, let me ask you, and then maybe Grant can chime in. You probably get asked this every day: Bitcoin or real estate? Now that you're invested in both, let me give you a personal anecdote, all right? Because you and I talked about this on Twitter a lot. I bought my first condo, my home, when I was 24. The amount of money I put in on that property, if I had held that in Bitcoin and not sold today, it'd be worth over 60 million.
Yeah.
And I sometimes lose sleep over that, but the upside is I had a place to live. I had a roof over my head. I had stability. So I can't look back with regret. And of course, I have made some money on that. Sorry?
Could have rented.
Could have rented. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I didn't have 2020 vision back then. I didn't know Bitcoin was going to go to $110,000.
Yeah.
So how do you evaluate that today? Someone comes to you, hey, I got 300 grand. I need to buy something.
Need to rent.
Okay, renting or buying versus the American dream. But that question first, and then we'll address that.
Look, I think I'll just cut to the chase. Owning a home is a horrible, horrible, horrible investment.
Interesting.
Okay, horrible. Look, let's pretend like you get married to Lenny. You guys are like, y'all love each other. It's awesome. And then, hey, you got to buy a house because that's what her mom and her mom and her mom and her mom said. That's success. And by the way, that's an investment, which by the way, I don't know when that happened, when it became an investment. But nonetheless, it's an investment. It never, ever gets retraded by the wife. The house could triple. You never hear the wife going, let's sell it and make our 300%. That never happens. It's not an investment. By the way, it's not liquid. It anchors you down. This 4% arbitrage rate that flipped up to 8%, another trap. People, I'm going to stay here in Oklahoma where there's no jobs because I have a 4% mortgage on a $700,000 house. I don't want to pay an extra 300 basis points for my life to live in a great city for 3%. That's ridiculous. That tells me people do not understand about core decisions just on math and education and blowing through. How do you beat inflation and gravity? And so it's I think Bitcoin is the greatest investment, risk adjusted and energy adjusted, meaning how much energy does Gary Cardone have to put into it? I never get called by my girlfriend to go, hey, go up on the Bitcoin roof and clean the leaves. I never get that phone call. Okay. Hey, hurricane incoming to Bitcoin. Okay. By the way, the plumbing's broken down here while I'm doing this interview and I have to stop the interview because I become a plumber. By the way, I'm a bad plumber. Okay. These are things that I want to rent. I want to rent a plumber. I want to rent the fire guy. I want to rent the house.
Just to play devil's advocate, but you could buy that property, rent it out, get someone to manage and do all that crap for you.
It would be an awful investment, though. Yeah. Because it's better for me to buy Bitcoin. I never get a maintenance call. I never get a tax call. I never get an insurance call. I never get anything. It goes up only 15% a year. Let's just assume 12 or 15% a year. It's unbelievable investment for energy, the amount of energy I put in. Right? And I can rent. I have rented most of the homes in my entire life. My children have spent 17 houses my children have lived in. They don't know if it's rented or not. They don't care. The pillow is the pillow. I've never had someone come to a party go, by the way, knock, knock, do you own this? Did anybody buy this hotel so you could come stay here for 2 nights? No. Nobody cares. Why are we ashamed of renting? It's a bizarre thing.
Grant, back to your point, as somebody who's thinking of buying another property soon, talk me out of it.
Well, it doesn't make money. I mean, it's adjusted for inflation. It's like 1% a year for the last 100 years.
It generates no energy, man.
Okay, it's a liability. It should not even be called. It should be illegal to say a home is an investment. It should be illegal to not have some kind of full transparency disclosure that saving is an oxymoron. You cannot save money. You know, the fact that people think they're saving money it should be, this money cannot be saved, in fact.
But if you look at the Case-Shiller home price index, it's only been going up since the beginning of history.
57 times in my lifetime.
Yeah.
It's gone up 57 times in my lifetime. But that doesn't include the insurance I paid, the taxes I paid, the HOA fees I paid, the maintenance I paid, the 3 roofs I bought, blah, 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 blah. And I was stuck in one location. And what else could I have done with that money? So what I would agree with you on this. I would go buy 25 rentals, not one place and rent, because then you're dependent upon one tenant. So you really work for them now because you got to be sure they stay there. I'd have 25 or 30 rentals paying me cash flow and get the cash flow and buy my Bitcoin.
Like we would never even consider buying one place and renting it out.
Yeah.
Because you lose that one guy, you're done.
You're 100% vacant.
You're done. And it just makes no sense.
And it's a liability again.
Look, I own a house that I bought.
That's why, can I just finish one other thing? Like some of the best debt in this country is still available, even though we complain about it at 5.5%. It's still some of the best debt because on 300 units or 456 units that cash flows $6 million in net profit, I'm going to get the best mortgage. I think in the future, you're going to put what we're doing with real estate and Bitcoin, you're going to put those two together as a hybrid where it ends up being 50%, $100 million real estate, $100 million of Bitcoin. And you're going to get a $120 million loan on that hybrid long-term 20-year mortgage. Canner down the whale put together a mortgage product. Fannie and Freddie will end up with Bitcoin hybrid. You don't like my guys at Canner?
No, bro. That hook got set so hard on you, though, dude.
Those are my friends down there.
Just keep talking.
Those are my friends down there.
You sell it, baby.
Well, those are my friends down there.
You're doing good, dude.
So anyway, I think some of those, because their mortgage products are a problem too. Like when you want to get out of your mortgage, it's hard to undo it.
Yeah.
You can also use that money to buy a private jet. You did.
Yes.
And before the jet company even told you they had a jet, you wired the full amount.
You done some good research.
I watch your videos, man.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I want to know what gave you the confidence. You're like, I believe I'll get this jet.
Yeah. What year was that, Ryan, that we bought the 550? Yeah. So I needed this tax breaks. It was December. I think it was the 12th of the month. I couldn't find another way. I had a plane. I had a Gulfstream 200 and had it sold, called Gulfstream and said, I need a plane. Because my tax guy said, there's no write-offs. There's nothing else you can do. And I owed like $50 million. I said, there's always something you can do about it. I could give it away. I could buy equipment. I could, go buy another piece of real estate. I could buy a jet. So I called Gulfstream and said, I need a 550 before the end of the year. We don't have one. To shorten the story, I sent him a wire after he told me no 3 times. I sent him a wire for $55 million. Called him back. I said, hey, can you find me a plane? He's like, Grant, I just told you, man. I said, check with your accounting department. You're going to see a wire just hit. Okay.
Yeah.
He called me back. He's like, bro, nobody's ever done that. That is the most gangster freaking move I've ever seen in my life. I said, you want to send me that $55 million back or you want to find me a plane? And he found me a plane.
Wow.
You know how hard it would be for a company to send $55 million back?
Could have done that in Bitcoin today.
I wouldn't have got tax write-off.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Bitcoin doesn't do everything. I come to this conference like Bitcoin does everything. Yeah, can't get a tax write-off.
Yeah.
It does not cash flow, even though I hear people talk about my Bitcoin yields 46% a year. I'm like, where's the yield? A yield is money coming in, not, I don't know how they figured out this yield thing, how they even get away with saying it, but so I get great tax write-offs. I get the appreciation of the real estate. As you guys print more money, as we print more money, real estate values are going to continue to go up. That's the only thing that drove up those 57x.
You think they keep printing?
Oh, of course they're going to keep printing. How can we play the game if they don't keep printing? Even in Monopoly, it's allowed to bring more paper into the game.
Printing, producing credit, what does that do to Bitcoin?
It becomes more valuable.
Yeah.
What happens to real estate?
What do you think? Well,
what happens to the price of everything?
Well, let me ask you this. Let me answer one question. What would happen to real estate if you couldn't borrow 80 cents on the dollar?
It would go down in value.
How much?
It would go down probably 40%.
So what would happen to Bitcoin if you could borrow any percentage?
Which means a guy like me that can pay cash would steal
happen,
real estate at that
What would
moment.
happen to Bitcoin if you could actually do the same thing and borrow 80 cents on the dollar? By the way, I'm not suggesting that you can do that, but what would happen? Because that would put real estate and Bitcoin on an equal playing field, and you don't have that.
You don't have a use. You don't have a use. You don't have.
What would happen to cars?
Nobody's sleeping in Bitcoin, bro. Like you guys got to get off this craziness.
This is about investing.
Can you sleep in a Bitcoin? I don't think so.
But we already decided that you can rent.
It's not shelter,
but you can rent.
But this is where it gets crazy. The conversation gets nutso right now because you're going to compare one asset that's worth $2 trillion to every asset on the planet. It's like there's not going to be any other assets. And this is ridiculous. You know, there's going to be other asset classes.
I think you're conflating. Like, I don't hear people saying it's going to solve everything. But you're not answering the question. What would happen to Bitcoin if you could borrow 80 cents on the dollar?
I think a bunch of people are going to have their Bitcoin stolen from the lender.
Okay. That's a really bizarre answer. But like,
that's what I think is going to happen.
So
I think a bunch of those, the 50% of those degenerates out there are going to lose their Bitcoin position.
Well, the degen by themselves, they don't actually own the Bitcoin. Somebody else, they're playing in a different field. But if real estate prices would get cut by 40%, if you couldn't borrow 80 cents on the dollar, I think that says a lot. That means that home prices would come down to 175,000 as an average, 200 grand.
That won't happen in single family homes. You have a 30-year mortgage. There's nothing to do that. You got 27 years before that expires.
So you're saying the trap in real estate that's set for most investors is we're going to loan you so much money that you're going to buy into a trap that you'll never be able to.
Every 10 to 12 years, there's a real estate correction in this country. Has happened for the last hundreds of years. And it always happens because of the debt crisis. Always. Has nothing to do with the real estate. It was the debt tied to the real estate. So if you tied 80% of the debt to the Bitcoin, you will have that traded every 7 or 8 years when the banks decide to pull the rug. It's the same problem.
So if you don't like liquidity and you don't like cash, why is it? Because I look at Bitcoin as the ultimate investment. It's not a savings program. And as long as my cash burn, the amount of money I have to spend every day, is not over what my Bitcoin holdings are, I don't need distributions from anything. I don't need any more. In fact, I don't want any more income. I would like a greater investment. And to me, housing, stocks, bonds, Bitcoin, I can make an investment for the next 8 years in a Bitcoin that also like structurally sits really well with real estate. 4-year investment versus 10-year, stack those together. Look, I don't think there's any right or wrong, but I'm not going to make little of anybody doing 100% Bitcoin or 40% real estate. Or I don't think there's any right or wrong. Everyone's different, but to be zero of Bitcoin, I think that's a big mistake.
I got one more question, then I'll pass it to Bonnie to finish. What is your biggest business mistake, failure that you've learned from?
Man, mine has been not taking enough risk.
Okay.
100%. Like I have.
Yeah, but you're saying that in hindsight, you know. You took just as much risk as you needed to at the time, right? Could you say that?
No, he's answering. He's saying I should have taken more risk.
I should be worth 10 or 15 times what I'm worth.
Yeah.
I avoided. I worked. I saved. I worked, and then real estate was the first thing I could make big bets on that I felt like, okay, I'm not going to lose here. And now I can add to that. Like my brother's right. I mean, real estate is very slow and boring. It's heavy and you can't lift it. And, you know, when we add the Bitcoin to it, though, it's going to lighten the load. It's going to give one of the most stable, proven investment classes on planet Earth this last 2,000 years or longer. People seek shelter. They're going to pay for it or they're going to pay for it. One of the two. And the Bitcoin gives it a big lift. Gives it really something with no liquidity, no volatility. With volatility, could be a great thing.
Gary,
dude, I've made so many mistakes. You do business the way I've lost so much money. Do I call those mistakes? I'm not sure I call them mistakes. If I learned something from, dude, it's not a mistake. I just had to go through it. The greatest mistake, though, has been like he and I don't do any business together. And we don't do it because, like, one, there cannot possibly be two captains on one ship. I mean, we're just going to run it right on the rocks. But doing business with a family member, that has been a tragic, I mean, $250 million mistake, man. That's a monster mistake.
What, doing business?
Going into business with, I got married to somebody.
Not
business.
me. Not me.
No.
I want to clear this up.
Well,
it's got nothing to do with me.
clear up that we don't.
I've made him nothing but money. So,
so that's been a huge.
That wasn't a family member. That was a wife.
It's a time suck, though. I lost a lot of time, and quite frankly, I've always been able to pivot really, really fast. There were businesses there that I was like, oh man, we need to convert the whole thing to crypto. I mean, I knew this was happening and I'm stuck. I was literally stuck in a business. So here I was stuck in an operating business that I couldn't get out of, knowing full well, my God, man. I mean, my partner called up our investment banker once in 2019. He bought $8 million worth of Bitcoin. And the guy, best investment guy in the world in the fintech space, he said, he's a God. Did he really?
When was this?
Monica was calling me.
What year was this?
19 or something. He's like, dude, seriously, he did that? Oh my God. So it's just getting in bed with the wrong partners.
Yeah.
That kills.
I've had a couple bad partners.
Yeah.
But you don't know. They started off good. Everybody believes in the partnership in the beginning.
If you could go back to when Gary was 20 years old and now you meet this 20-year-old Gary, what would you say to him? Except for buy Bitcoin later, but what would you say to him?
Well, I wouldn't say buy Bitcoin. That would not be the piece of advice. When you're 20 years old, where were you when you were 20? You're in college? Yeah, you're going to college. Man, look, if I have more wisdom now,
You're who you are now, knowing everything that you know.
I probably
now.
wouldn't give him any advice because I know he's not going to listen to me anyway. He's going to be like, fuck you, man.
And
I don't think he's going to listen to me.
I
mean, there's only one piece of advice he can give me when I'm 20. Dude, get off of drugs. I was on drugs every day. So there's only one. That was probably the biggest mistake of my life was 10 years of drugs.
I think I would tell him, hey, dude, find like, look, really what I should have said about him earlier when you asked me to define him was I
couldn't
said
come up with anything.
That he was a powerhouse. That I think he found his passion and he just went into it. And whether it was alone or like we were really single focused people. We're not like he and I barely have any investments. People are stuck. We have no advisors. I've never had a financial advisor in my life. I wouldn't listen to somebody about what to do with my money for the I don't listen to him. Yeah. Like I'm going to do my own deal. Yeah. But if he's passionate, I would tell anybody, dude, just blow yourself into something that's so exciting. It's almost as exciting as sex. Just get into something that you love. And I use that because it should be passionate and exciting. And when it's not, work through the boredom or get out. If you're bored of, like I've been in 4 industries.
It definitely needs to last longer than sex.
I literally can
That's
get
a short-term
so bored after
investment.
6 or 8 years that if I stay in the industry, I am going to become stale. And my value will go down because I'm no longer interested in learning anything. And I'm excited for him because he's coming into the space. He's going to fight it. You can see the ego. No, real estate's good. Bitcoin's better. And it's just going to be.
I don't even know why you talk about that. Like to me, it's not even a.
You're just twitching a little bit. We see the legacy twitches from you from the background. I mean, it's just, but we love you, man.
I think what I'm doing with this real estate space, it's not going away. People have to have a place to live.
Yeah.
There is $350 trillion worth of real estate on planet Earth. It's probably the largest asset class on the planet combined.
Yeah.
Right?
It is.
It's massive. You're not getting rid of that ever. Never. Nothing disrupts it.
Do you think that continues to grow?
And
can that bubble get bigger? Because you made a comment about, hey, $2 trillion for Bitcoin.
It's going to get bigger. It's going to get bigger through natural inflation. Everybody should wish for inflation. Everybody should want inflation. Inflation is a great, great thing if you own assets.
Not too much of it, hey?
Well, I mean, I don't know what too much is. As long as I own the right assets, then I want it.
Hey, guys, that was great.
Yeah.
That was an amazing talk. I'm happy with you guys just showing up, but
That
hey,
was
But if you're happy,
amazing.
you guys had me at hello.
That was
We're all happy,
amazing.
man.